Welcome back to Joe's Motoventure. I'm going to pick up where I left off with the maintenance on this tri-guide today, so let's get into it. So we're looking at the rear brake pads here. I know it's hard to see, but there's still plenty of life left in these. The rotors look good, so our rear brakes are good. This bike is in really good condition. I mean, it's 11 years old now and it still looks brand new under here, so it's been very well taken care of. Okay, so we're ready to check the belt tension. What I have here is Harley Davidson's belt tension tool. So you see it's got a 10 there. You want 10 pounds of pressure on the belt when you're checking it. So, you know, when it's sprung out, it's at 0. As you push this in, it takes 10 pounds of pressure to get to that mark. So what we want to do is, in the center of the belt, you want to hold a ruler up against the frame. So we're right at about 3.5 inches from the frame to the bottom of the belt there. So we're going to put this tensioner here and push until we get to that 10-pound mark. And that gets us to right about 3 inches. So we've got a 1/2 inch of play there. The manual calls for 3/8, 7/16 inch, so we're within spec there. So after checking it the first time, we want to spin the wheel and get to a new part of the belt and check it a few more times. So I've spun it a little bit. I'll check it again. I've got about a 1/2 inch here, so we're still within spec. And I'll spin it one more time. So here I'm just over a 1/2 inch. So it's in the upper range of the acceptable amount, but we're still good to go. The other thing you're looking for is wear on the belt. So you want to check both sides of the belt, make sure you don't have any obvious rubbing there from it being misaligned with the sprocket. You want to check for cracks. But this belt looks like it's in good shape and we're still within spec, so I think we're good to go here. Probably the next time this gets serviced, it'll probably need to be adjusted. So adjusting the belt on a trike is quite a bit different than it is on a regular Harley touring model. You know, on a regular bike, you would loosen the axle nut and, depending on the style of bike, either turn the screws in or rotate the cam nut on the axle. But on this here, you have these, I guess I call them spreader bolts. So as you see, the head of the bolt is up against the axle tube there. So you would loosen up these 4 pinch bolts. There's 2 here, 2 on the top, on both sides of the bike. Loosen up your jam nut and turn that adjuster screw until you get your right tension, and then tighten all your pinch bolts back up. The key to adjusting this is to do both sides evenly so that your belt stays straight and true and you don't get misaligned. So I've got the wheels set back up in place and I'm starting the lug nuts by hand here. Obviously you want to get all 4 started by hand before you start running them in. And then I've got a very light duty impact here. It's not going to reach anywhere near the torque spec of these. You do not want to use a heavy duty impact. Just go to town with it or you're going to cause issues down the road. I like using the light duty impact because it helps just get everything seated without, you know, over torquing everything. So the torque spec for these lug nuts is 90 to 100 foot-pounds. I've got my torque wrench set to 95 foot-pounds.
And I've got the parking brake set just to keep the wheel from spinning while I do this. If it's on the ground, you don't have to worry about that. And I'm torquing them down in a crisscross pattern. Make sure everything seats correctly. So to check the wheel bearings, I'm going to grab the top and bottom of the wheel, try to rock it back and forth. There's no play there. I'll do the same thing front to back. Again, no play. So this thing's good to go. I'll check the other side, and then I'll get it set back down on the ground and move on to the 3-hole service. So here is the oil drain plug, and then up through this little hole in the frame is the transmission drain plug. You'll need a shallow well 5/8 socket for the oil drain, and then you'll want an extension or a deep well to get to the transmission plug. Under the primary cover here on the left side of the bike is the drain plug for it. It's also a 5/8. So all 3 holes are draining now. I'm going to pull the primary cover off. It's a T27 Torx bit. You gotta be careful with these. These are really easy to strip out, so make sure you have the tools seated well in them. Now that they're all broken loose, I just grab my power ratchet and run them out the rest of the way. So here I'm just going to clean the drain plugs up and get the old O-rings off of them. I've got the service kit from Harley here, so it comes with the primary gasket and all 3 O-rings. Then I'm just going to clean them up with a little bit of brake parts cleaner. Get any oil residue and metal particles off the magnet. I always like to make sure I get the O-rings on as soon as I get these things cleaned up. That way I don't accidentally forget to put them on later. So now I'll get the primary cover cleaned up, get the old gasket removed. And then there's a lot of oil residue on the inside of this, so I'll use some brake parts cleaner again. Clean that up. The gasket for the primary cover tends to fall out, so I use a little bit of axle grease and just put 4 little dabs around the perimeter of this, and it'll hold it in there when you're ready to go install it. And then you just set the new gasket in the groove. Like I said, that axle grease will really help hold it in there. So this bike had a K&N oil filter on it. I like these because they have a hex built into the end of the housing. It makes it a lot easier to take them off and install new ones. If you have a Harley brand or any other brand oil filter, Harley sells a oil filter wrench. It has a little window cut in it, and that enables you to work around the engine housing so that you can get the wrench onto the filter itself. Harley also sells a funnel that's made to go under the oil filter and direct the oil away from the bike. I found that it does not work very well. My old bike was a twin cam, just like this one, and with it sitting on the kickstand, it still didn't direct the oil away. So this one being upright, obviously, it's just not going to work. So here, you just got to do your best, get the oil filter off without spilling any. You're going to spill something. So I just go in with a little bit of brake cleaner and clean up whatever spilled. And then when you put your new filter on, you want to fill it up with a little bit of oil, and then make sure you get some oil on the seal, just like any other oil filter. And when I bring this oil filter in, I'm just going to do my best to keep the open end of it faced upward until I get it in place. It's a little tricky getting it in here without spilling any of that oil, but it's pretty doable. So here's the oil dipstick. It just unscrews, pull it out. Make sure you don't trip anything on the bike. And then just in front of it is the transmission dipstick. It's a 3/8 inch Allen. So just break that loose, and then you can turn it out by hand. So I've reinstalled all of my drain plugs, and I'm ready to fill the primary. This is Harley's little primary funnel here. This thing is a lifesaver. It clips into place, and it just makes filling this up so much easier. I've got a quart of Harley's synthetic gear oil here, and the primary takes an entire quart. Okay, now I'm reinstalling the primary cover. Taking care not to let that gasket move. Get all 5 started by hand. Run them up as tight as I can by hand. And then torque spec on these is 84 to 108 inch-pounds. I've got this set to 100 inch-pounds. And then you want to do a star pattern just like you would with your lug nuts on your car. Make sure you get this torque down evenly. The transmission takes 28 ounces of the same gear oil, so not quite a full quart. And then I'll reinstall the transmission dipstick here. And it gets torqued to 14 to 21 foot-pounds. I've got my torque wrench set to 18 foot-pounds here for this. In the owner's manual, it says to fill the bike with 3 quarts of engine oil, and then you want to run it, get it up to temperature, check it, and top it off as needed.
Alright, so we got the bike back down on the ground, got the 3 quarts of oil in it, and got it warmed up, let it run for a few minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and check the oil on it now. I like to just wipe the dipstick off, reinstall it, and then check it. So anything that's splashed up on it isn't going to give us a false reading. Alright, so here's our full while on the kickstand, and there's our full while running. And you see we still need a bit. So we're going to add about a half a quart and see where it's at. Alright, so that's got us where we want to be. We got all the service done on this Tri-Glide, with the exception of the brake fluid flush. Stay tuned, that'll be next week. And after that, it'll be ready to go back home. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.